Welcome to this week's edition of Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Chi-Chen Lo. As the superpower in the world, whatever the U.S. does, it influences the world. But as what Professor Joe Nye of Harvard University said, the U.S. is bound to lead the world not only by its hard power, but also by its soft power. In other words, the U.S. is influencing the world not only by coercion, but more importantly, by attraction and communication. So how does the U.S. communicate with the world? In today's program, we are very delighted to invite Mr. Lawrence Walker, press officer at the Public Affairs section of the AIT, to come to our program. Mr. Walker, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Dr. Lo.
So tell us about your job. As a press officer, what's your main responsibility?
My main responsibility is to engage with the Taiwan media, and also to allow the U.S. to know what the Taiwan media are reporting, particularly on matters of concern to the U.S. and the U.S. itself.
That's right. So you interact with the local media quite extensively and frequently?
Quite frequently. Because I'm on your program tonight, my cell phone is off. Usually, however, it's on.
Good. But on the other hand, people have been criticizing for the local media because they are too sensational and, hypes and so on. What's your take on that?
Well, Taiwan is a democracy of fairly recent vintage, and part of democracy is a free press.
That's right.
So after, when I lived in Taiwan 20 years before, there were 32 newspapers, and they were about 8 pages long, and what they said did not differ from one another. Now that has changed very much, and of course, people are making up for lost time and writing what they can. Of course, over time, because the media in every society, every democratic society, be it Taiwan, the United States, or elsewhere, are responsible to their public, that's one thing that I think all of us would probably like to see a bit more of. And there is a tendency for many of the publications and TV channels to be allied with either one viewpoint or another, largely defined by party, but a free press is a good thing.
Do you find a difference between the local media and, for instance, media in your country?
I think media in my country have had a longer time to develop, and there's sort of a body of knowledge and practice that go with being a journalist that are now starting to develop from a somewhat later stage here.
That's right. So what are your major policies in terms of providing information to the local media here in Taiwan?
Well, the major policies, of course, as our director of the American Institute in Taiwan, Stephen Young, has said, the main pillars of our relationship with Taiwan are Taiwan's security, Taiwan's democracy, and also the economic relationship, trade relationship between the U.S. and Taiwan. So these are the three things that we emphasize the most. But in general, for our public diplomacy, what we emphasize is getting the U.S. official position out there as it's been worked out through the many consultations and actors that have gone into that, and also just knowledge of the United States as an open society, because the way we feel that to know us is to understand us better. Decisions are made in the United States for openness and processing of information and opinions from many people, and we want people to be aware of that as well.
But as we know that your country is a free, transparent society, so in general, people in here, Taiwan, are more, are more able to get information about your country through, CNN, other, media, and so on. So why do you need another official line, from,
Well, otherwise CNN would be making our policy.
That's right. So you think there's a gap over there?
Well, there always is, and in fact, there's almost a vacuum when that official policy and view is not provided. CNN, among other media, are always looking to U.S. official or semi-official sources for the view, the official view on what's going on. Also, there's a facilitation.
That's right.
There is we have a number of people, places as honest brokers, including an information resources center with trained reference librarians who can help people access real information about the United States rather than relying on maybe less reliable sources.
So do you hold a regularized press conference for the local media here?
We do. Currently, Director Young gives a press conference every 6 months. without fail. And he invites all the media. We invite all the media that we know about who are interested. I think at our last press conference we had an attendance of something like 77 journalists. And he takes questions with interpretations for 1 hour. And the rest of the time our office is open and our cell phones are generally on, and we're accessible to take questions and respond.
But in general, local media tend to be interested in only particular policy issues and so on. Do you find it frustrating,
It can be frustrating at times, especially when we find that the focus is on a small issue to do with the U.S. that relates to maybe a larger issue with Taiwan, but they're missing the big picture, and that's one of the reasons that we like to help people see the big picture and see more of the United States and its diversity, what it is and what it has to offer, than just the part that it deals in with that is of concern for the current Taiwan political scene.
In addition to press conferences, do you also provide other service to the local media here, or local, people who might be interested in knowing more about your country?
Well, actually, we have a whole wide array of people. Our public diplomacy is carried out here with 23 very talented Taiwan employees and 3 direct hire Americans from direct hire from Washington, and the things we engage in are culture, education, media, of course, as we've been discussing, information, speaker programs, and exchanges. And I can get into any and all of those as you like.
Yeah. Take the so-called American Corner example. What's the purpose of providing that kind of service to, for instance, Taichung citizens?
Well, previously, in many places, we had entire libraries, American centers, and such. This has gotten more difficult to do, in that it involves expenses, stationing people different places, and the well-known risk of terrorism at a high-profile, publicly accessible target. The American Corner has been a nice way of being able to put something with American information resources, such as databases, books, and programs that go around it. It's actually a whole program center. It's done in cooperation with a local partner, and it is also not at some culture center run by AIT somewhere, but it's at your library. It's at the library in Taichung, where most people go to. So it really becomes, in a way, a part of the community.
Are the materials provided by the AIT in general?
Yes, in general they are.
How about
and the database
how about responses from people in Taichung, in Kaohsiung, and so on?
Well, see, you point out also in Kaohsiung we recently opened an American Shelf. But that's probably too recent to know how it's going, but it got a very enthusiastic reception. An American Shelf is similar to an American Corner, but on a slightly smaller scale. Nice. And I think it's more funded as a local initiative from the Post rather than directly supported by Washington.
That's right.
But we hope to build that up, and we have an office in Kaohsiung which has its own resources too. So the whole American Corner isn't as necessary as it is in Taichung, since you already have somewhere else to go to, namely our office in Kaohsiung.
Are you thinking about providing similar services to other counties, cities in Taiwan? I
think we have to see how this goes and move gradually. But at least with that, we have covered the 3 major cities in Taiwan. Well, I don't know yet, but first we'll see how those are going. The response has been very good, particularly with Taichung. In that we get a number of people attending the activities there all the time, a fair number of users. I don't have exact statistics, but it's my understanding from my colleagues that this is the case. And there's some other very useful services. One thing I find is very nice for educational advising. We have 2 organizations we work with in Taiwan that advise people going to the United States. They don't recommend a particular university, but they help them choose universities. And we have actual face-to-face educational advising in real time via Skype, carried on from the library with the educational advisors.
Yeah, but I think in general people have information about your country through media. So your relationship, public affairs relation with the media is very important. So what's your own experience of interacting with the local media here?
Well, it's been rather extensive. One of the difficulty of interacting with the local media is there's so many of them. It's really an amazing number of media for this size of market. Quite dynamic. It's been interesting to see the level of interest toward the United States and the level of engagement and the large number of people we have turn out for not only the director's press conference but all of our events.
Yeah.
But there is a bit of a focus on Taiwan, as is natural for local media, but sometimes it does seem a bit too local, and that's why I enjoy programs such as yours that reach out more to the world.
Yeah, but the thing is, you know, when your director or your AIT speaks, everybody listen, but they tend to only listen to the things they want. You know, in other words, they only provide somewhat biased information that provided or fake, you know, partial facts. Do you think that happens all the time?
You know, that doesn't just happen in Taiwan media. If you read the U.S. newspapers, you know, I constantly would attend my hometown of San Francisco talks given at the Commonwealth Club. And as a member of the Commonwealth Club, which is a public affairs forum, I would get the entire text of the speech lightly edited. And then I also got the newspaper.
That's right.
And the two were often very much at odds with each other. So one advantage of free media or media freedom in Taiwan is that when we do a press conference with the director or the director gives a speech, that goes up on our website, www.ait.org.tw. So anyone who wants to look beyond the headlines and go see that can read it actually even before the newspaper comes out.
That's right.
And see the full text of what was said. We also copy and transcribe the entire personally, the entire text of the director's press conferences, and those likewise go up the
so
same
there will
day
be no
to the website.
and so on.
That's correct. Yeah. And so anyone who wants the full story can get the full story, and
so this kind of cyber diplomacy is also a very important part of your job.
Yes, it is. I think the internet has become important worldwide for dissemination of information, particularly for those who are looking for it.
Personally, do you think that is there any strategies or tactics in interacting with the local media here, because they have their own tempo, you know, and so on?
Well, the strategy really depend on the various media, and strategy and tactics that work well. You try and find out what works. The big dichotomy is obviously television versus print. The print media can afford to concentrate more on words and on subtleties of that, and put it in a form that's for that. Whereas for the television, something has to move.
That's right.
And so some of our cultural activities, performance,
pictures and so on.
We do have access to some of that. I wish we had a bit more. We do ask, for instance, when a cultural exhibit comes, can you please provide, can someone pan with a camera through the exhibit? Can you provide still photos on that? Can you provide footage of dance dance groups? Obviously, the media have these type of media have different needs.
Yeah, and media relations is only part of this so-called public diplomacy.
Yes.
So when we come back, we'll talk about your way of doing public diplomacy, because your example, transformational diplomacy, public diplomacy has been models for many countries to follow. So when we come back, we'll talk about U.S. public diplomacy.
Okay.
So don't go away. We'll be back after this message.